Okay, this first video is just an introduction into the After Effects interface and how to get yourself around and what are you actually looking at. You probably will hear me making comparisons to Photoshop, largely because they're both Adobe products, and the icons are all the same and they're designed to work well together. So basically, After Effects is a Photoshop for moving pictures, for video clips and stuff. But starting out, what we've got here is an interface. We have no composition, we have nothing, it's just the interface. And generally, composition is like your image in Photoshop. It defines how big the frame is going to be, whether you're using 1920 by 1080 high definition or some small, 720 by 480 standard definition web for web. But the composition holds that information along with the frame rate, the speed at which the frames are being played back. So I'm just going to create a composition and actually show a couple different ways to get the information, the media in here. The first step would just be under composition, say new composition or Control N, and you've got a couple of different, you got your a lot of presets as far as how you want your composition, how big you want it to be, the aspect ratio, frame range, frame rate, and all of that. I'm going to, for the moment, let's see, we're going to use HD, but at 2997, which is sort of a standard television, broadcast television frame rate. A lot of people say 30. The actual number is 29.97 frames per second for largely historical reasons. You'll also find that at the film frame rates, they say 24 frames per second, but it's actually 23.976, and that has to do with making films compatible with television for rebroadcast and stuff. And ask me more about it, I'll tell you more than you want to know. But right now I'm going to do HDTV 1080 2997 and just create a composition, and now I have a frame that's in my HD format, and it's playing back. It's going to play back at 2997, and it's created a composition over here. You notice that right here is project, and right next to it is effects. And when we start putting effects on clips, that's where the effect controls will pop up. But right now we just have a project, a composition. We have no layers because we have no media yet. So there's a couple ways to load media. The most historical, traditional would be file, import file, and go browse to it. And what I want right now is this MVI 0798. I'm going to open that up, and you'll see now I've got this clip here with a little icon, picture and sound. It tells me how long the clip is and what compressor, and it's a QuickTime movie and all of that. If I want to put it on my timeline, all I have to do is grab it and drag it down and let go. And now I've got a high definition clip that is on my timeline. Now another way, I'm going to undo this a couple times, get rid of that, I'm going to get rid of that. Another way is just to drag and drop. If I have the folder where my media clip is, if I just take it and drag it right in here, it'll pop up here. Please note that when the media is, when you see it here, it's actually creating a shortcut, just like, or an alias, just like any standard computer shortcut to the media. So it's not actually digitizing it, it's just saying, oh, look over in this folder for this media, which also means if you move the media, After Effects will not know where to find it. So you generally want to place all your material, your media clips and such in folders and sort of set up a project and keep everything organized and not move it. You can go back and find it later if you need to, but it's better not to have to do that. So I've got my clip I'm going to drop back down on the timeline, and I'm going to just scrub the timeline a little bit so you can see I can hit my space bar and just play it, and it's actually going to cache it. You'll notice it's not playing back at 2997 the first time around because it's actually caching to a hard drive. And now if I come back and play it, you'll see it's when it's playing at the correct speed, it'll say real time. And at this point I'm just going to give a tour of the software. We'll come back into how the tools work in a little bit. But anyway, so as you can see, all the media that you're going to collect is going to end up under the project. And if I click here, this is where my effects are going to be. Across the top, basically zoom in, the hand tool, rotation, camera tools, pen tool, type tool, cloning tools, pretty much what you've got in Photoshop, but designed a bit more for moving pictures. Moving down here, this is my layers area, which is different than Photoshop, but each of my clips, as you can see scrubbing along the timeline here, each of my clips comes in as a layer. I can create other layers. I'll be doing that in the next section, in the next video. But as I keep adding layers in here, it's just like adding layers in Photoshop, and you can mix and match and paint between them and all that sort of thing. But this is your composition. This is your layers timeline down here, and these are some of the options you can do with your layers. Over here is your timeline. And you can just grab the play cursor and scrub along, and there's my video. Over here will be windows that change based on the tools that you're using. Right now it's showing some of the type tools. Up here is a preview where you could actually cache into the RAM. So if I want to play this, it's going to play back with sound and loop, and I stop that. And up here, info, audio, if I want. My audio levels, things I can adjust. And up here, my main viewer, showing me the time, and cameras. If I want to look at my RGB, I can look at RGB or just the red channel, green channel, blue channel, but most importantly my alpha channel, which is just solid right now. That's my transparency channel. And then how far in I'm zoomed in, that's 50% of my frame. So what you would actually see at home if I were to feed this out and broadcast it would be this size, 100%. So this is the size of my frame, 1920 by 1080. And I've offset my frame. I can move it around. If I don't want that, I can open up to some of the tools here on the layer, transform, reset. Underneath here, by default, every layer is going to have a transform, and if there's audio, there's going to be an audio folder. If I open that up, scale, rotate, translate, transparency, I'll get into those in the next video. Position, so I can move it horizontally, by numbers, vertically, up like that. If I decide I don't like that or I make a mistake, I can just hit reset and it's going to snap everything back. And then I'm just going to close this back up. So that's a brief overview of the After Effects interface and just how to load a file into it. I will get more into making stuff with it in the next video. So that's coming up.